Hey everyone, and welcome to day 4 of the Sunflower Seams Zinnia Sew Along. Today we will be accomplishing steps 30 through 60. Some of these steps will be for the simple skirt dress, the ruffle dress, the tiered dress, and then the romper. So even though it seems like a lot of steps that will be accomplished today, really you're only going to be doing a few for each version that you're doing. So first up will be the simple skirt dress. You will take your 2 skirt pieces and lay them on top of each other with the right sides of the fabric touching. Next, you will sew along the side seams of the skirts, attaching them together, and you will want to finish off with either a serger or a zigzag stitch. You will repeat that for the opposite side seam. Next, you will fold the hem of your skirt up 1/4 of an inch with the right sides of the fabric touching. Then press. You will fold it again another 1/4 of an inch and press. Finish off by top stitching along the folded edge of your hem. And voila, you are done with your simple skirt for today. If you are completing the tiered skirt or the ruffle skirt, let's continue. You will take either your top tier or your skirt pieces and lay them on top of each other with the right sides of the fabric touching. You will pin and sew along your side seams, attaching your 2 skirt pieces, and finish off with a zigzag stitch or a serger. Repeat for the opposite side seam. You will then finish off your hem with a serger or a zigzag stitch. If you are doing the tiered skirt, you will do your middle tier the exact same way as your top tier. Next, take either your ruffle or your bottom tier and lay 2 of your ruffle or bottom tier pieces on top of each other with the right sides of the fabric touching. Line up the short raw edges and sew and finish off with a zigzag stitch or a serger. Continue that step for each piece of your ruffle or your bottom tier. Once you get to the end, you will attach the 2 loose ends together, forming a giant loop. Now take the bottom raw edge of your ruffle or bottom tier piece and fold it up with the wrong sides of the fabric touching and press. Fold it up another 1/4 of an inch and press. You will then top stitch along the folded edge of the hem. Now, the next step is for the bottom tier, the middle tier, and the ruffle piece. So if you're doing the tiered skirt, you will repeat these steps twice, one for the bottom tier and one for the middle tier. And then if you're doing the ruffle version, you're only going to repeat this or do this step once. So technically we are hemming the top raw edge of our ruffles, middle tier, and bottom tier. You will fold the top raw edge of your ruffle, middle tier, and bottom tier with 1/4 of an inch with the wrong sides of the fabric touching. Press well. You will then fold it another 1/4 of an inch and press. Top stitch along the folded edge just like we did the bottom. Once you have hemmed the top of your ruffle, bottom tier, and middle tier, it is now time to sew 2 rows of gathering stitches along the top of your ruffle, bottom tier, and middle tier. Once those gathering stitches are complete, you will want to pull your gathering stitches until your ruffle is the same width as your skirt, or your bottom tier is the same width as your middle tier. Now, you will want to turn your skirt or middle tier right side out, where the right side of the fabric is facing up. find one of your ruffle or bottom skirt seams and line it up with the seam of the skirt. Once you have the seam of your ruffle lined up with the side seam of your skirt or your middle tier, overlap the ruffle on top of the skirt by 3/8 of an inch or a centimeter. Place a pin. Now, find the very next seam of your ruffle or bottom tier and place it at the center of your skirt or your middle tier. Once again, you're wanting your ruffle or your bottom tier to overlap your skirt or middle tier by 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch. And you are laying this ruffle or bottom tier on the right side of your skirt and middle tier. So the wrong side of the ruffle and bottom tier is touching the right side of the skirt or middle tier. Line up the next ruffle seam with the opposite side seam. And then repeat for the last ruffle or bottom tier seam by lining it up with the middle of the other skirt piece. Now adjust your gathers accordingly so that they are even across the skirt. You will want to pin along the way. I am not a huge pin placer, but for this exposed ruffle style, you will definitely want to place a decent amount of pins. Once you have pinned your ruffle or your bottom tier to your skirt or middle tier, you will then want to top stitch along the pin seam using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. If you are creating the ruffle version skirt, then you are done for day 4. If you are creating the tiered skirt, then you will want to sew 2 rows of gathering stitches on the top of your middle tier. You will want to pull your gathering stitches to the same width as your top tier. You will repeat the process that you used to attach the bottom tier to the middle tier. So line up your seams to your side seams and your middle of your skirt and overlap it by 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter, and then pin in place and sew using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And now you are done with the tiered skirt version. Next up is completing the romper bottom. So lay one of your romper bottom pieces with the right side of the fabric facing up, and lay the second romper piece on top of it, right sides of the fabric touching. Pin both side seams of the romper pieces and sew the side seams and finish off with a serger or a zigzag stitch. Turn your romper bottom piece right side out. Fold it in half so that the side seams are touching. It does not have to be super precise. All right. Next, take your leg bias and fold it in half with the wrong sides of the fabric touching, and you will want to press it well. Repeat for the second bias. Next, take your leg bias piece and lay it on top of your romper bodice piece with the right sides of the fabric touching. You will want to align the folded raw edge of your leg bias with the raw edge of the leg curve of your romper bodice piece. You will want to pin along that curved leg opening. Now sew along the curved raw edge. Now you will want to trim away any excess leg bias that is left. Then trim away 1/2 of your seam allowance and clip and notch your curves. Turn your bodice romper piece with the wrong side of the fabric facing out. You will want to open your leg bias up and press it flat. Then fold your leg bias over to touch the wrong side of the romper piece, enclosing the raw edge of your leg hole. So it was laying on top of the right side of the fabric, and you are going to flip it up and over to the wrong side of the fabric. Top stitch your leg casing. Take a piece of your leg casing elastic and attach one end to a safety pin. Starting at one end of your casing, insert the safety pin and start feeding it through, but don't go too far because you will want to take this loose end and pin or clip it to secure it so it doesn't get pulled through your casing. Now continue feeding that elastic and safety pin through the rest of the casing. Once you have reached the end, you will want to sew over the loose ends of the elastic multiple times to make sure that you secure it. You will want to do it for the safety pin end as well as the pinned end. You will want to repeat the leg elastic casing steps for the opposite leg hole of your romper bottom. Next, take your crotch placket piece and lay it on top of your romper bottom raw edge with the right sides of the fabric touching. Now sew along the raw edge. Next, you will want to flip your placket around where the wrong side of the placket is facing up, as well as the wrong side of your romper bottom. If the sides of your placket extend past the romper bottom by more than 1/2 inch, you will want to trim that away, that excess away. You want it to be 1/2 of an inch past the romper bottom. Now fold the crotch placket long raw edge up 1/2 of an inch and press. Now fold the sides of your crotch placket in 1/2 of an inch or until it is flush with the romper bottom. And repeat for the opposite side of the crotch placket and press. Now fold the folded edge of your crotch placket up until it covers the stitch line of your placket and romper bottom pieces. Press and pin. You will sew your placket shut. You sew down the side, across the edge, and then back up the opposite side. You will want to repeat the crotch placket steps for the opposite bottom raw edge of the romper bottom. And that completes day 4 of the Sunflower Seams Zinnia Sew Along. Join us tomorrow so that we can finish up our beautiful masterpieces.